Embryonic stem cell research is one of the most controversial topics, not only in the United States, but around the world as well. To use living human embryos for research, even though it is going to be good research for the practice of man, for the future of mankind, has brought up a lot of ethical dilemmas and whether it is actually proper to do so. President George Bush in 2001 vetoed the bill asking for more stem cell research and banned it in the United States to the point where only a few strains of stem cell research could continue. In 2009, President Barack Obama then continued the stem cell and allowed federal funding for stem cell research up to 21 lines of stem cells. In 2009, the Omnibus Proprietary Bill banned stem cell research through federal funding. But because President Obama had already lifted the ban 2 days prior, that bill no longer stood standing. Now, the dilemma for stem cell research stands in ethics. Many experts think that it is unethical to carry on stem cell research. On the other hand, other experts think it is ethical, but many experts in the end believe that stem cell research can do good for mankind and good for the future of human medicine. Now, even though some consider stem cell research to be unethical, some do not. The people who consider stem cell research to be unethical are those that consider it killing a human life. Now they say a human embryo has the capacity to grow into a living human being. It's a capacity to grow organs, grow hands, grow a brain, grow intelligence, and because of that, it is a living being. And killing a living being is like murder. So in their mind, conducting human embryonic stem cell research is like murdering individuals for research. Now for them, they realize that different strains of stem cells and different strains of research are actually good. But what they still have to realize, they still think that it is still not good enough to proprietary and to make someone want to murder. They realize the goodness of stem cell research, but they do not want to commit murder in doing so. Now, how do you get stem cells? In a human embryo, there's 250 to 300 blastocytes, and the blastocysts have trophoblasts in them. The trophoblasts are the stem cells that have the versatility and the variety to develop into any other type of cell. Because of that, they could be very useful in medicine and in nature. Now, when you extract those blastocyst cells from the embryo stops growing. So in essence, you stop a living being from growing and from developing, thus considering it murder. Due to these main problems, they say these critics of the stem cell research say conducting human embryonic stem cell research is actually unethical and against the general principles of mankind. Now, those on the opposing viewpoint think it is actually ethical and all right to conduct human embryonic stem cell research. They look past the fact that you're killing an embryo and you're stopping it from being able to grow, and look at the broader range of things. First off, they do not even regard an embryo as a living being. They regard an embryo as a homogeneous bundle of cells that over time could have functioned together, but since they do not function together and do not have purpose, they are just a bunch of cells, thus they are not living beings. This being the main point, they endorse stem cell research with these main points, that since they are not living beings, then stem cell research is alright. Now, along with this, these proponents of stem cell research who say that stem cell research is ethical also believe that there's other versions of stem cells that are good. Like the amniotic fluid from a woman who just gave birth, from a pregnant woman who just gave birth from umbilical cord. They use those stem cells. They also propose using stem cells from infertile trials where infertile women or whatever give their eggs and they use the stem cells from people who are from infertility trials. There's many different ways to get around killing embryos, and there's also many different views on whether an embryo is actually living a human being. But what we have to realize, we have to weigh in on what we see, and we have to see whether we want to change the law of whether we should conduct more embryonic stem cell research through federal funding. Now, I described to you why some people think it's unethical, why some people think it's ethical. Now I'm going to describe to you what good stem cell research can really do. Now, stem cells are basic cells of living. Like, when we move, we use our motor cells to move. When we think, we use our neurons to actively fire neurons and to think and process information. Now, stem cells are all of those. They're the most basic form of cells. When you use stem cells and you incorporate them in something, they have versatility and diversity to take the function of the cells they are near and replicate that function. So a person suffering from Alzheimer's, who's also suffering from memory loss, dementia, degrading brain, incorporates stem cells of the right manner into their brain and with the right formula, you can actually have them see them regaining their memory. Alzheimer's would flow backwards. They would go from losing their memory to gaining it, to gaining their cognitive function. Because of the versatility of these cells, they're truly lethal if used in the right way. If you cloned cells of people who have Down syndrome or cystic fibrosis, you could isolate the singular gene of the Down syndrome or cystic fibrosis and study it using stem cells, and then use stem cells itself to recreate it and reproduce it and fix it so that you can go inside a human and genetically alter that trait so they do not have that problem anymore. So now, when looking at stem cells and you see and you weigh the pros and cons, you have to realize that these cells are truly like it's a dummy cell. Whatever you instruct it to do or however you grow it, stem cells will grow in those ways. They're truly a unique type of cell. Now, there's still many who are against it, saying that destroying human life, destroying human embryos is not worth it. There are also those who still support it, and saying that human embryos are not living beings because they're just a cluster of cells. But what we have to weigh in, and we have to say that we need to look at it, and we need to say, is it proper to change stem cells, to change the stem cell policy or not? Currently, stem cell policy is banned through public funding, and only banned through public funding, and it's only allowed through 21 different types of strains. Now we should further increase the operational budget and the amount of strains we can experiment on with federal funding, so that we can focus on bettering the shortcomings of mankind and cure diseases like Alzheimer's, help cure cancer, help cure different types of diseases. So as I'm saying, I'm for stem cell research because even though it has some drawbacks, but as long as we have the consent of the parents or the consent of the people whose embryos they are, then we should be able to do so and use these stem cells for the betterment of mankind and for the betterment of our future. So even though it's unethical to some and not ethical to the others, we have to look at what it's really good for and what it really can be used for. We have to look at the bright side of things, and that's why any type of ban on stem cell research should be righted, and it should not be banned anymore, and there should be free research on it so we can better understand it.